Thank you very much for coming. It's always an honor. I think we should start with, if 8 people are going to go 10 minutes. The truth is no one really went to a political event and wanted the speaker to go long. So I will try to keep within shorter than 10 minutes. But anyway, I appreciate you coming. It's a very big honor for me, and it's very humbling for you to come out and see me, even though I've seen a lot of you over my time. I like to start off the discussion and this comment with this quote, because I love this quote, and that is that a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, but an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. I am a passionate, unapologetic optimist. And regardless of our challenges that we face as a state and in a nation, I still believe in the American dream and protecting the American dream. I think, we're the only country associated with the dream, and that needs to be protected. And so I was born and raised in Rowan, Indiana, smaller than actually Sheridan. We have 400 people live there. It's a small, impoverished, really a farming community. And my mom and dad still live in that house, and I'm very proud of that location and house. And my mom and dad taught me there the conservative principles of loving God with all your heart, loving one another. Your word is your absolute bond and 100% truth. But most of all, what they taught me is I had the opportunity to live in the greatest nation ever known to the human race. And I can tell you that has been forgotten, and we have to literally shout from the rooftops what's right with America instead of letting the small minority talk about what's wrong with America. And I can tell you that's our job together as people. That principle and that conservative principles are really my foundation, my cornerstone. That's how I make decisions. That's how I literally, when I look at a solution, bringing solutions to problems instead of just airing my grievances and talking about what's wrong, bringing solutions to those problems because of my conservative principles. The other thing I've done in my entire life is look to lift people up. Lift people up and help provide opportunity, because that is what America's about. That is the American dream. And most of all, not expecting others to do something I'm not willing to do myself. I want to take those conservative principles, these ideas, and really apply them to the difficulties that we face in a state and in a nation. Because, not just because I'm a Republican, it's because I've seen those ideas work, and I've seen those principles work and really bring solutions to problems. So I was, after graduating high school, I went to North Manchester High School. I actually have a high school buddy here with me, Scott. That was pretty glad to see you show up. But after graduating high school, I went to Vincennes University, where I got my associates in architectural drafting and surveying. And that's where probably the most important thing happened to me in my life, and that's where I met my beautiful wife, Tricia. We've been married for 30 years. After Vincennes, we went to Purdue. I graduated construction management program. We moved to Noblesville shortly after that. We've lived in Noblesville for 28 years. We've raised 4 awesome kids, and now we have the distinct honor of being called Mimi and Pop Pop to our grandson, Fletcher, in Westfield, Indiana. Probably one of the biggest blessings, but that really got me thinking about, man, what is happening to the American dream and what are we going to do about it? So we are absolutely rooted right here in the district, and we all still believe in the American dream and want to protect that, just like all of us, for our generations to follow. So in 1991, when you think about America, that a strong work ethic, the ability to pursue opportunities, and the challenge and the opportunity to fail and succeed, the American dream is still very much alive. So in 1991, I was hired as an intern at Gaylor Electric. I was raising money at Purdue to go on a national competition for construction. And it was a golf outing, and I was sitting in a golf cart waiting for the sponsor, and down sets John Gaylor. I always know God's timing is absolutely perfect. And so John Gaylor hired me on the 9th hole of this golf outing as an intern. I remember telling my dad, I called him up and I said, "Hey Dad, I got a job." And he says, "Shoot, you went to college, I'm glad you got a job." But more importantly than that, he asked me, he said, do you know anything about working for an electrical contractor? And I said, I don't know anything, but what I am going to do is take my principles and what I've learned and take them to learn that business every day. And since that time, I left Purdue. I went and lived in a tent between Strawtown and Cicero, doing my first internship. And I've served in just about every role that is offered at Gaylor Electric. And eventually, true American dream story, I became president and CEO of Gaylor and purchased it in 2014. We continue to build that organization on the conservative principles of a strong work ethic, humility, and grit. And I'll tell you that story about coming from Rowan, Indiana, small town, again, 400, and then becoming president of a CEO of a large organization, has over 2,300 employees and 7 offices right here in Indiana itself, from the north to the south. That's what I mean by rooted absolutely right here in Indiana. Now, my story to you may seem improbable, but I can tell you that's where I've developed this relentless attitude of it's possible. Because people will say, why you go to Washington, D.C.? It's possible to put America on the right track. It is possible. That is my relentless attitude, and I know from a lot of talk in the district, wondering about how do we put America on the right track. And so I can tell you, people ask me all the time about why run for Congress? Why run for Congress? And it's literally what I said earlier. It's because my parents taught me that we live in the greatest nation ever known to the human race. And I can tell you that it's our responsibility to lift people up and help provide opportunity, and that's exactly what I'll do in Congress. So 4 things, or some things I can help with as soon as I get to D.C. as your congressman, are 1, we have to eliminate generational poverty. We can do that by putting dignity back in work, by eliminating the negative stigmatism around working with your hands, because folks, we know it's wrong, and we know there's plenty of money and career to be made in working with your hands, and that's how you start ending generational poverty. We have to get rid of the Biden administration. Their entire process of burdening our personal liberties and our businesses is absolutely crazy. We don't need to hire 65,000 IRS agents to police you and I. We just need to make sure the tax code is so that everybody can fill it out. I can tell you that they have absolutely killed business. They sideline entrepreneurs, and you can't get capital. The third thing is we literally have to secure the border. We have to build the wall. We have to quit letting people in the United States that want to destroy America and bring the drugs across. I was asked the question about, are we a border state? We are a border state. I was proud to sign the resolution to send the Indiana National Guard to the border to help Texas, because we have to secure the border and quit letting people in the United States that want to destroy it. And last thing is, I was thinking about, a budget, and thinking about all of us, how we all have to live within a budget. And the only people who doesn't seem to understand that is Congress. And I can tell you, we have to support the budget, and you can't negotiate the budget 3 days before we actually have a government shutdown. We have to negotiate a budget. We have to have a balanced budget. If we don't have a top-line spending problem, we got a bottom. We don't have a top-line revenue problem. We got a bottom spending problem, and we need to eliminate the bloated spending in Washington, D.C., so that we don't carry on this debt to our generations to come. It's absolutely imperative that we build a budget and we have a balance. So those 4 things, and I can tell you that I've been proud of my voting record in the state of Indiana. We've made Indiana one of the most conservative states in the United States on abortion. We've saved over 1,750 kids last quarter. I got to vote for that in special session. I got to vote for constitutional carry, making Indiana one of the most conservative states in the state on the Second Amendment. Our budgets for the last 2 years have made Indiana admired throughout the country on our fiscal position. And of course, the 1183, the House bill that really said our foreign adversaries across the country can no longer buy property in the state or lease property in Indiana. And I can tell you, we also gave the Attorney General the right to go after the bad actors, because I've heard all the ways they go about doing it, so we gave it to the Attorney General. So if you'd like those goals, get involved in my campaign. I've traveled the 5th District. I offer growing a business, understanding what inflation's doing to us, understand what taxes do to us, and really that whole scheme of what of the stuff that I've talked about with you, the things that we've passed, the things that I'll work on. I can tell you that if you want to get involved, just go with chuckgoodrich.com. I'd love to have your support. I appreciate the support very much. God bless you, stay safe, and please, the government can't do is we need to take care of one another. So thank you for your support.
There's a quote. Can you hear me? There's a quote by Ronald Reagan, and it says, "The time has come to reassert our trust in God, to reassert our faith in Him for the healing of America." And that really touches me when I talk to groups, because I believe today a lot of our problems are in our heart, the way we think. We can't look to government to solve problems. We do it through the building block of the family and the things that we teach our children, how we care for our parents. I want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm from the Summitville, Fairmount area, so I send greetings from Eastern High School and Madison Grant High School, two of the foes that haven't been as successful as the Sheridan football team. I grew up working on the farm. The lady next door to me, I tended her garden, mowed the yard. It would take me 5 hours. I would help the farmers driving the tractors at the fall and the harvest. So I understand what growing up in rural America is all about. And I understand what it means, that this farm economy we have. Whether it's Agricor in Marion that sends the corn to Chelsea, where we get our Jiffy, our Jiffy cornbread. Whether it's Red Gold and all the tomatoes just down the road. We're really rooted in agriculture here. I want to start out tonight by telling you a few of the people that have supported me and endorsed me. Gary Reynolds had the John Deere here at Sheridan, but has moved out to Arcadia. I've appreciated Gary's support. Congressman Fred Grandy, I don't know if you remember Gopher on the Love Boat. I was Gopher's gopher. So Fred has been kind to offer his endorsement. Sheriff Dwayne Burgess there in Greenwood. Prosecutor Jay Rich over in Tipton, Mayor Tyler Moore over in Kokomo, Frank Faulkner and Brian Alexander, two of the county councilmen in Howard County, Jack Dodd, a commissioner in Howard County, John Ackerman, who helps lead the Tea Party over in Anderson, and Jim Brunner, a city councilman in Marion, Dave Glickfield running for council there in Marion. So there have been some people that say, yeah, I want her to be in Congress. Why are they saying that? Well, number one, I believe I'm the most suited, I'm the most prepared, and I could start on day one to initiate a lot of reforms. Republicans have been lacking. When we get in power, we spend more money, we bloat the budget, and we don't seem to have solutions to solve problems. So from day one, if I'm elected, I would know how to get things done. My experience would be, after graduating from Taylor University, I went to Baylor. And it's kind of interesting, the drapes and the color remind me of a lot of the rooms down in Waco, the antebellum South. After Baylor, I went to Michigan State and graduated in law school. I worked for a diplomat at Baylor. I went to Washington, D.C. and worked in Congress. So I helped Fred Grandy. And I did things like offer amendments, draft bills, handle conference committees. I can remember on the family medical leave, Clarence Thomas's wife, Jenny, and I helped lead the floor debate. Then Senator Coates was running against a guy named Joe Hogshead. And my brother-in-law was Mark Souter. Mark died of cancer last year. He was a congressman up in Fort Wayne. So Mark had me come over, and Senator Coates needed a health plan. Senator Coates used to work at Lincoln Life. So we developed what you call the health savings accounts back in '92. And then I helped on pharmaceutical medical device issues. Kennedy was the chair of our committee. What that meant was 6 o'clock the night before a hearing, we would get the bill. And we could think about amendments overnight. I married a lady named Nancy Souter. Nancy was at IMB, stock analyst, and I always joke she had 3 Bible studies praying she wouldn't have to move to Michigan, and they moved her to Detroit. So I moved to Michigan and helped Governor John Engler as his healthcare policy advisor. And I traveled the state. I worked with the Autos National Governors Association, but issue number 1 was defeating Hillary Clinton's healthcare bill, and we were successful at doing that. I believe issue number 1 for all of us right now is firing Joe Biden. We've got to get him out. He's running our economy into the ground. He's really hurting America. So I'll be committed with whoever wins, and I hope that's me, to bring that change into effect. So after I helped Governor Engler, we moved back to Indiana back in '98. We adopted 2 children from Romania, wanted to get closer to home. I can remember driving over to Lebanon to the Methodist Children's Home, and every week we'd go see a loved one there. A lot of good things happening just down the road there at the Methodist Children's Home. Andy Cook, who used to be right down the road at Baker's Corner, Andy supported me, the former mayor of Westfield. So I've been practicing law 25 years. You see the good judge here from Circuit Court. And for 25 years, I've had offices in Kokomo and in Noblesville. I lease from Bill Taylor. Bill farms all the land around Western High School. And I've enjoyed working in estate, trust, estate planning. And I think that's brought me a lot of knowledge and experience on what we call sweat equity. When I was with Governor Engler, I remember a guy talking about how law is a jealous mistress. I had no understanding of what he meant. But jealous mistress meant you might stay up all night and you're working about 60 hours a week to meet the client needs. This morning it was reviewing a solar lease and then looking at a pub that's wanting to sell and go to someone else. So I'm a working man Republican. Ronald Reagan used to talk about that. I'm working while I'm running. I think that's important. Mr. Savage and I are the only 2 that were really born and raised in the district. And I agree with him. The reason I'm here, it's all about the common man. I call him the silent majority. I'm talking about that guy that works real hard, that lady that works real hard to pay their taxes. Maybe it's a single mom that's working 60 hours a week, and she's raising 3 or 4 kids. I'm thinking of the retiree. People are talking about wanting to tax some of the unrealized gains in their retirement account so they can get money now. I'm here to fight for people, and I think you want a congressman that wants to fight for the people. I think there's a lot of wisdom in knowing how to fight, when to fight. I think my experience has really taught me that, and that's why I would want to be a voice for this community. Adrian hasn't raised her hand. I'm going to go into a couple issues, but I'm watching. Number 1, I'm very pro-life. I'm very pro-Donald Trump and his policies. I was disappointed with the 15-week rule. Babies can suck their fingers and the heart beats at 15 weeks. I don't see 15 weeks as acceptable. I'm a member of the NRA. I believe in the Second Amendment. In big cities, when my wife worked in Detroit, they tried to mug her 3 times. Once at the Detroit Tiger ball game. Conceal and carry keeps women safe in the big cities. I believe in zero-based budgeting. Every year, the 12 appropriations agencies, they need to go back to square one and justify why they spend every penny. Our budget shouldn't allow automatic growth of 4% every year when we do nothing. We're spending way too much money. As Governor Daniels said, that's a moral issue, and it's mortgaging away our children's future. That's a big issue for me, cutting out unnecessary spending. I'm a big advocate of standing up for Israel. I'm honored to have Bob Taylor here. Bob was at Langley and at the Pentagon, and he was an Air Force intelligence officer. But one of the things he taught me about Israel is if you control the Golan Heights and the water in the north, you're going to control that area because the water runs south. We're looking at Hezbollah. We're looking at the Houthi rebels. We're looking at other groups that are really proxies of Iran. I ask you, how can you negotiate with another person when they don't recognize your right to exist? We saw with the Iron Dome and David's sling, it helped Israel survive. So I believe it's very important to stand up for that democracy. 12% of our trade comes through the Suez Canal and the shipping lanes in the Red Sea. We've got to knock out the Houthi rebels. If they're going to try to attack our ships, I think we're decisive and we knock them out quickly. Lastly, I'm for capitalism. I'm for America. And we've got to stop this progressive socialism that's starting to sink in the hearts and minds of Americans. And I might pick up on more of that later. I'm going to stop right there. Thank you.
Shades of red, white, and blue. Guarding drinks for all, he believes in you.
Raju Chinthala is a healthcare professional, a successful businessman, and a community leader with experience. Raju is ready to be your next congressman in the 5th District. Raju for you.
Good evening, everybody. That's my radio ad. It's a jingle on the WIBC and every radio station. My name is Raju Chinthala, running for Congress. I want to be your next congressman so that I can represent this beautiful northern Hamilton County. I've been in Indiana for the last 30 years, almost. I came here in 1996 into Indiana, but 94 into America. My wife, who's a geriatric psychiatrist. She has the largest mental health practice in the state of Indiana. And also my son, who is a 3rd-year medical student at IU School of Medicine. And we have a dog, I'm sure you see on my palm card. I may be the only one who put the dog on my website, and palm card is a American Eskimo, Snowball. So we all live in Carmel, and last 2 decades also, 22 years, I've been in the Republican Party. I started as a volunteer when Mitch Daniel was running for governor. I used to be his photographer with a digital camera. The camera used to take 3 pictures or 5 pictures. The memory is full. The next day again, we take some pictures because there's nothing, no laptop and no phone and all that. So that's where I started. I became graduated from Indiana Leadership Forum in 2004, involved with many campaigns. I'm known as a selfie taker for many elected officials. And also I'm the treasurer for Hamilton County Republican Party, where we help Northern Hamilton County GOP also. But last six years also I was been treasurer who manages the finances. As you know, I'm running for 5th District Congressional seat against several candidates, but many of them, you switch on TV, you see a lot of ads. They'll tell you why you should not be voting for others. But today, I'm going to tell you why you should vote for me. And also let me tell you a brief story, why I'm here, how I came to America, how I landed in Indiana from India. It's Indiana, NA is just 2 letters extra. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed coming to Indiana and made a big impact. My grandmother, who was not educated, she thought she should send her son, my dad, to school, and he became the first graduate in our family. And then my dad became a school teacher. He was also my school teacher who taught me math, science, and English. And then I became, I have 2 master's degrees from there. So that changed the life in our family. My grandma, who never knew about education, did not go to school, but she wanted this. That education made me to come to this country. And that changed our family. That totally eliminated our poverty. Because my grandma was literally lived in poverty. And today, we live in one of the most powerful, beautiful country on earth. And my family is very grateful to this country. I want to give back to this country. I lived here for 30 years, and this country has given me so much to me, my family, and my children. I want to preserve that American dream for my children, your children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. That protect American dream. This is the only country on earth that can happen. Live American dream. And I'm living American dream. You must have seen my bus everywhere. I enjoy riding around. Last week we were in 18 cities, last week itself. 18 cities in the district. The bus goes all over. I start my day at 7 a.m. I go home at 10 p.m. I've been on the road, learning a lot, meeting small businesses, gas station owners, accountants, restaurants. I think I gained 10 pounds eating in 3 meals in different places across the district. So that is the where I bring my health. I was my 2 master's degrees are, one is in speech pathology and audiology. I'm a speech pathologist by profession. And second is I have a master's in business administration from Indiana Wesleyan University. Last 2 weeks ago I visited. I graduated there in 1999 with a master's in business administration. So 2 masters. I also received 2 Sagamore of the Wabash Awards from 2 governors, Governor Holcomb, Governor Pence, and also I received the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award in 2022. So saying all this, what I lived in Indiana, I want to give it back to the community. I know the 5th District. I've seen more than 50,000 patients with speech, swallowing, cognitive, hearing problems in the nursing homes. My wife is also a geriatric psychiatrist. She goes to all these nursing homes to see these patients. My oldest patient was 180-year-old. Many of them are more than 100-year-old. I care for veterans. That's where I started looking into medical marijuana. That's where I started looking how we can help these hospice patients so that they don't depend on opioid medicines, which are addicted for cancer patients, for pain, especially for hospice patients. Many people cry before they die only for pain and for swallowing because they cannot swallow anything, because anything they swallow that goes into lungs. I managed aspiration pneumonia for many, many thousands of people. Veterans, that's dear to my heart. I want to make sure the veterans in the 5th District will have a state-of-the-art, state-of-the-equipped hospital for them to serve when they come back. We should not be having homeless veterans in our district or in our state of Indiana. They put their lives at the borders to help us. That's why we are able to breathe our freedom. We must take care of our veterans. Small businesses are backbone of our economy. I understand that. I started a India Business Council as a volunteer, and that became a full-time job after 15 years. I became a senior advisor at Indiana Economic Development Corporation. By the way, I got endorsement from Secretary of Commerce, Jim Schallinger, who worked with the 2 governors, Governor Pence and Governor Holcomb, but $24 billion into the state of Indiana and 100,000 of jobs in the last 7 years when he was the Secretary of Commerce. I know how to deal with international companies. I know how to deal with international governments. I know how to bring the jobs into this district. Jobs, jobs, jobs. That's only will eliminate the poverty and the high-paid jobs. We must focus on economy, build our economy and grow our small businesses community here, help veterans and protect our American dream. And also most important is to safeguard the next generation. We must stop using more resources for ourselves. I say loud and clear, stop stealing from next generations. Today is actually Earth Day. Earth Day, we must protect our earth so that our great-grandchildren will have life what we live. I am concerned about that. I am very concerned about $34 trillion debt for how my grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to pay for it. If we don't fix the problem, we must fix the problem. I am a legal immigrant. It took me 16 years to get my passport. By the way, I only have one passport. That is United States of America passport. I don't have any other country passport. Only one passport. That is United States of America passport. And that took 16 years. Respect the rule of law. Enforce the rule of law. We must stop people coming from southern border. That's a national security threat. It is not only just the national security, but it's also affecting our communities with the fentanyl and drugs and who is coming here. FBI has issued a warning 2 weeks ago about theft. Thieves are coming into neighborhoods and stealing from our houses. So we must protect that. I'm all about that. I have a passion, I have an experience, 30 years as a career, healthcare, as a speech language pathologist, managed the franchise hotel, and then enter into the government. I am Raju, I am for you, and please support me. I need your vote. Send me to DC. I will fix the problem. I'll make the 5th district as a #1 district in the country. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the state of Indiana. God bless the United States of America.
Good evening. My name is Lonnie Powell. And there was a reference to Ronald Reagan earlier. I'm a fan of Ronald Reagan. I loved his humor. And so I went back and looked at a joke he told that kind of tickled me. He was telling the story of this Russian that wanted to buy an automobile and went into the dealership. And he picked out the colors and picked out the features that he wanted. And the auto dealer said, "Fine, we'll have your car ready for you in about 10 years. 10 years? All right then. Well, shall I come back in the morning or the afternoon?" And the auto dealer said, "Why does that matter? That's 10 years from now." He says, "Well, the plumber's coming in the morning." So, we do live in a great country. A lot of things are going on that we don't like, but we still have a lot of good that's going on. I did make some notes, so pardon me if I look down. Some thoughts that I thought were important I wanted to make sure I shared with you. A little about me, my background. I was born and raised in Indiana. I'm a 4th-generation Hoosier. I'm a Christ follower, father of 3 boys, a Navy veteran. I joined the Navy as a teenager. I have a bachelor's from Huntington University, an MBA from Indiana Wesleyan University, and a master's in ministry from Bethel College. I was one of the founding board members of the Chapel, a large non-denominational church in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I have served as a board member of the Allen County Juvenile Center. I cut my teeth in politics working in Dan Coates' office, as mentioned earlier. And I love to fly. I'm a certified flight instructor. One page 2, here we go. So why am I running? My reason for standing before you here this evening started one morning about 20 years ago, when I was awakened by an excruciating pain in my abdomen. I was taken to the emergency room by my family, where I was diagnosed with pancreatitis. A needle was put in my arm, and the pain quickly slipped away. 9 days later, I was discharged from the hospital with one problem solved and another one started. I developed an addiction to painkillers. I would go on to struggle with this addiction, trying unsuccessfully to stop on my own for some time. But thankfully, by the grace of God, it was suggested that I try out a place called Fairbanks Hospital, a rehabilitation hospital just on the north side of Indianapolis. I took that suggestion, I checked in, and I got the help that I desperately needed. And while I was there, I met people from all walks of life. I met a CEO of a billion-dollar company. I met grandfathers, grandmothers, fathers like me, and I learned that addiction cuts across all segments of society. It's an equal opportunity destroyer. And I would imagine in a room this size tonight that there's some of you in here who have or have family members that have struggled with addiction. I learned many lessons about the disease of addiction and how to recover while there at Fairbanks. And for me, fortunately, as God does, He took my setback and used it for a comeback. I was able to recover from my addiction and go on to help start Celebrate Recovery Ministry in my church, and that has helped hundreds of people break free from addiction. The recovery group, which is still active on Monday night, 7 o'clock if you're in Fort Wayne at the chapel, went on to help start up 7 other recovery groups in Northeast Indiana. We have helped hundreds of people break free from their addictions. This experience and my recovery is a big part of my why for running for Congress. You see, while my story has a good ending, I've witnessed too many sad endings. And the number of Americans dying from deadly drugs flooding our country continues to climb year after year. Data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Center for Health and Statistics, indicates that we're an estimated 100,000 overdose fatalities in the U.S. during a 12-month period ending April 21st, an increase of 28.5% from the same period in 2020. The problem is growing. The rooms keep filling up. The people keep coming. It's not that we don't have resources, but we have a problem at our borders where that keeps generating more and more problem downstream. The fentanyl today is up to 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times stronger than morphine. Fentanyl is often added to other drugs because of its extreme potency in making drugs less expensive, more powerful, more addictive, and more dangerous, per the CDC. And now, along with producing more addictive and deadly drugs, the cartels are setting up their labs on our border. I just read this week. China is moving the precursors into Mexico. The Mexican drug cartels are putting the labs on our border. And then just in an article yesterday, they're getting ready to use drones to fly over our border to deliver their drugs into our country. The problem is getting worse. The danger is increasing. It's outrageous, and it needs to stop now. I know that others are running on different priorities. Mine is securing the border. Priorities like lowering your taxes, reducing the size of the deficit, the size of government, bringing jobs. These are all good priorities. I support all of them. But for me, I'm running to save your life. And if it's not yours, the lives of your children and your grandchildren. I'm here to warn you. I'm here to warn you that the deadly cartels are coming for you. And if they can't get you, they will go after your children and your grandchildren. They will not stop till they have destroyed our country and our people. So what do I propose to stop this flow of deadly drugs into our country? Well, I'll start with supporting passing H.R. 2, which includes many good ideas, but some of them that come top of mind for me is we got to finish building the wall, increase the number of our border agents, and if needed, using the military to step in and protect our borders, maybe even going so far as to declare a no man's land for 5 miles inside of Mexico's country. If Mexico will not step up and stop these drugs from flowing into our country, we will do it. We need to prohibit the use of funds to transport illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities. Furthermore, before DHS places an unaccompanied alien child within the individual within the Department of Health and Human Services, we must provide DHS with certain information about who is getting these children. Under Biden's administration, 85,000 undocumented children have entered the country and we have no idea where they're at. And it's being reported that a lot of them are being sexually exploited or exploited for labor. That's a shame. And our government is accountable for that. In addition to passing H.R. 2, when I'm elected to represent you, I'll propose extreme financial tariffs on China and Mexico and any other country, for that matter, that does not do all in their power to stop the cartel activity in their country. Until the profit is taken out of drug trade, China and Mexico will not do any more to stop the cartel. We can leverage our tariffs and our trade laws to punish them financially to stop this drugs from flowing into our country. You can't tell me that Mexican government and the Chinese government cannot put their thumb on the cartels and stop this activity. Now a word about the recent vote to send $61 billion to Ukraine. I'm glad that our Congresswoman Victoria Spartz voted no. I would have voted no with her. And furthermore, I will vote no for any funding to any country until funds are provided to secure our borders. That is my first priority. We need to take care of our people, our country first, or there will be no Americans left to help anyone else. So let me sum it up for you why I believe I'm the right candidate for this time in our country's history. I have a record of service starting with my military service, interning for Congressman Coates, personal experience of overcoming an addiction, and going on to help hundreds of others overcome it. It's my priority to secure our borders first, save the lives of our citizens, and I humbly ask you to join me on this mission to secure America, American dream for our children and future generations. Thank you.
Much. Yeah, I'll try to be brief, you know, a lot this way, my bio, but let me talk a little bit. You know, I can talk a lot about myself and be the dream or not, but I'll tell you, the reason I decided to run for Congress because American dream is less and less achievable for our children. And that's someone who grew up under very tyrannical government, spent all of my adult life in Noblesville, Indiana. I have enormous appreciation for freedoms we have as an Americans. You know, as we said, I think Margaret Thatcher once said, you know, Europe was created by history. America was created by philosophy of freedom. That no one can tell us, no government, no one superior. We have equal rights and we can pursue happiness in whichever way we want. And no one is above us. That is a true American thing. And maybe because I read Alexis de Tocqueville and Friedman and Hayek and came as a young person with suitcase and with this maybe in some way idealistic idea, I do not want to give up on them. And I, you know, my first job was a bank teller, floating bank teller in Hamilton County, actually made me become American quickly, even though bank was bought by a bigger bank and people were screaming at me. I would come and cry. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not my fault. It was Metro Bank, if some of you remember. I'm like, I didn't really, that was nothing to do with me. That, you know, there was a bad merging and they, you know, screwed up accounts and that. But, you know, it made me, you know, talk to a lot of people all day. And it used to be, we would have like 100 people a day. And it was really helped me to understand what is really problems and really integrate so quickly, which really not happening as much. Because ultimately, we're all Americans, we have different heritages, but what really unites us and hold us together, it's fundamentals, it's our Constitution. This is what holds us together. We have a lot of diverse experiences, what makes it our country great. But that is what really a glue of the country, and if we're losing it, if we're not teaching our children what is really America is about, we're going to lose this republic. And that is very dangerous. But I'll tell you why people are so frustrated. You know, when I got involved with politics, I didn't get involved because I actually thought that, you know, that I want to be Republican. I didn't know. But what I realized, what is the fundamentals of our party, and what our party became, it's not representing the people. So I actually started fighting my own party, you know, because I felt my party is abandoning the people and the other side want us to become socialists. What is socialism? Socialism is a tyranny where the people on top, political elites, close to the government, and everyone else is equally poor. That's what they want. But when my side is not willing to stand up and fight some righteous fight, when my side is becoming corrupt, and becoming, you know, either having a job or want to have money being in politics, that's what betrayal republic. And I'll be honest with you, at least the other side say, we're socialists. You know, Bernie Sanders, okay, we might disagree, but at least he's honest. A lot of Republicans are the same socialists. They're just lying, they're hypocrites. And I cannot stand hypocrisy. They're liars. They're lying and betraying the American people. So I was like a Tea Party organizer, then I got involved with Republican women. We did a lot of suppers here in Sheridan when I was, and then I thought, oh, Victoria, you need us to fight, and so I became president of Republican Women, then got involved with Republican Party and took down some leadership of the party, so it wasn't good. Then became vice chairman, and then people, oh my gosh, we need someone to run for Senate. And I decided, and I became state senator. I didn't become, it was a huge battle too. Establishment of my party, they don't like women who can work and chew gum at the same time. They're going to be a puppet. That's someone who is not going to fold, because I know what is at stake. I know what it is. And it's like, you put a frog in the boiling water. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to accept it. I grew up in enormous corruption. I'm not going to accept it in my party. I'm going to fight the righteous fight, regardless what it is. And righteous fight are tough. Money and establishment comes after you hard. But if we're not willing to do it, then it's not worth to call ourselves that we're really fighting true believers in freedom. If we're not willing to pick these battles and die on that hill and take it, then it's not worthwhile. We have a lot of Americans died for our freedom, and we need to cherish and appreciate that if we want to have American dream available for our children. But the American dream is becoming very tough. When I was involved, and became CPA then later because people said CPAs are smart. Then I was involved in corporate America running, $1 billion operation, and was a CPA doing a lot of different things. And then my husband said, oh my gosh, you need to get back home. I have 2 little young kids, 2 girls, and need to get back in town. So I got in town, and we started our own businesses. I'm actually driving a combine, the farming, and I enjoy that very much. I dragged my husband today from tractor. He's not happy with that. It's a planted season, but it's okay. He's good, hard work in America. That's what greatness, no matter where you start, hard work, that's what should give success. But when I start realizing, I'm like, OMG, if you're not close to the government, you might go bankrupt. The businesses get closed, get grants, tax abatement, they get all of this approval, and you are like, getting harassed. They come after you. I'm like, this is wrong. This is not American. We cannot do that. So I start, working on taking my party better. And OMG, when I was in the State House, there was no lobby for the people there. And unfortunately, a lot of legislators forgot. So I had to fight my own party to protect property rights. We're supposed to protect your life, liberty, and property. To actually fight my party that was using liberal agenda to come after and take our Second Amendment rights. I had to fight with them because we don't want to have education. They were moving CRT in schools. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is a Marxist ideology. Have a database. I fought my own governor. I forced him to open the economy, to open hospitals. I couldn't believe that. Indiana has some of the highest prices of healthcare, some of the highest energy prices in the country. Our education going downhill, and they're spending more and more money. Our Medicaid is $1 billion short, and no one wants to do it. So I started forcing them to calculate the numbers. I'm good at numbers. I'm actually, no one likes numbers in government, but that is something I did for a living. So I started calculating. I'm like, oh my gosh, $100,000 per person per year on Medicaid. What's happening? Where did the money go? $50,000 per child per year on foster care. I said, where did the money go? We can send everyone to business school. Cover business school for $50,000 a year, only $510 goes to families. Oh my gosh, I started passing and forcing some of the bills, and I write legislation. I start killing some bad legislation that Republicans and supermajority are moving. It's embarrassing. I could not believe that my party is doing what they're doing. So we had some good stuff. I done some things, and then I felt, what? President Trump and I have similar management style. I'm so sick and tired. And some of these issues are federal. We have to push it back to the states, because federal government centralized a lot of power, and it will take someone who understands and who is willing to fight a righteous fight against the machine. So I came in Congress and I said, one sort of spending is healthcare, hospitals building Taj Mahals, 106 cruisers in insolvency for medical debt. We're paying billions to CEOs, and we are bankrupting the country. And no one wants to touch it because number 1, lobby hospital, number 2, insurance, number 3, big pharma. So I said, look, we're going to have Healthy Futures Task Force, a forced legislation. We put a bunch of policy task forces. I was the only one who actually wrote laws, not talking points. I tried to force this issue this Congress. We had more hearings on health care than decades in Congress. And this incremental branch, I tried to force the fiscal commission that next debt ceiling increase, we have a plan. Don't move economy back and forth and make last-second decisions. Unfortunately, my side didn't hold the ground. And that is the challenge, They didn't hold the ground. I said, okay, I cannot support this, but let's just pick some hills to die on, okay? Let's just pick and take them. At least one. I used to say 3. 1. I said, let's just do the border. At least let's just do the border. I mean, this is insanity. I'm a legal immigrant, but it's insanity. I'm on the immigration subcommittee, been at the border, all sectors. I tried to help Texas as much as I could. We helped them with the lawsuits, with everything. We do what we could, but it will take some legislation to tie and framework with abuses. We passed HR 2, couldn't take it. So we said, let's just do it. Let's pick a fight and win, at least something. Well, unfortunately, my colleagues folded. On FISA, we fought that. Surveillance, this is like a KGB state, defaulted. And that is the problem we have. So I'll tell you one thing. If we don't want to elect leaders who actually don't make it politics their job, or make themselves rich, or companies rich, and gets lots of free labor and all these great things, they're talking all this stuff, but getting rich in the government. If we keep electing people, both sides like that, we're going to fail as a republic. We have to win some battles. Republicans need to start governing border, our debt, and all the wars that happen around the world are destructive. What we're doing, what China is doing to us, is going to destroy the future of our children. So I think it's very important for us Americans to start paying attention and elect good people running. I'm not planning to be forever. I'm going to deliver some good things, and then I'm going to leave the laws. But please, I encourage you, don't trust lies and big money that people spend and try to tell lies about that. Talk about the record and the people and pay attention. So I hope you elect good leaders on all of the levels. But it's been my honor, to serve you, and I hope we'll have good allies in DC to serve you more and deliver some good things. And then I'll go live the laws that I legislated. That's how every American should be. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
I'll pop this up in a second. So, have we learned a lot tonight?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Patrick Malayter, and I live in the Geist area of Fishers. I am also a licensed CPA. So I'm going to take my time to talk about 5 different things. I'll give you a little bit about my background. I'll talk about how it is I got into the race. I'll highlight some of my campaign planks, answer one of the best questions I heard in all of the debates so far, and then I'll provide some closing commentary. So, first, my background. I was born and raised in downtown Gary, Indiana, about a mile away from the steel mills, so I grew up in the hood, so to speak. I went to high school at Andrean, which is a Catholic school in Maryville, Indiana. The most consequential thing that happened was during my junior year, I met this beautiful young woman named Ellen White, and we've been married now for 45 years. Crazy, right? She is the best woman on planet Earth and is the mother of our 5 children. College-wise, I graduated from Indiana University, Bloomington with an accounting degree with distinction. Concurrent with my graduating, I sat and passed all 4 parts of the Uniform CPA examination. It was also a busy summer for our family because Ellen and I got married and moved to Central Illinois to start our first careers. I commenced my career with the Big 4 accounting firm KPMG, where I became a partner, equity partner at age 33. Now, to just give you a sense of the challenge with that, Big 4 accounting firm partners represent about 1% of the people that they ever hire. The people they hire constitute generally the top 3 or 4% of the best business colleges in the United States. So it's something that's really, really hard to do. I ended up, after KPMG sold my practice, I became the national tax director of one of the largest accounting firms in the US, which is right now about the 7th largest firm in the country. So what got me into this race? Well, basically my concerns over the economy, inflation, the debt, and why it's hurting our youngest people in the country. We have truly screwed our millennials and Gen Zs with this overall process. So let me tell you a story that illustrates this a little bit more. You know, roughly, probably a little over 20 years ago, when President Clinton was in office, our country was actually in a great spot. The world was at peace, people were getting along, and our nation was generating its 4th consecutive budget surplus. In fact, our head of the Federal Reserve at the time said we'd be able to actually pay off all of our national debt by 2006. After that, we'd be able to start pre-funding Social Security to the extent of $500 billion a year. Well, that didn't happen, did it? Well, what did happen? Well, when President George W. Bush took office, he also had a Republican House and Senate. They passed initially a couple of blowout tax cuts that largely benefited our highest income people. It kneecapped the revenue. Next, President Bush went into wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, adding trillions more in debt. And then finally, our COVID spending was the icing on the cake, leaving us in the $34 trillion hole we're in today. And that is why inflation is hurting so many people. We have destroyed the value of our US dollar with all of this crazy spending. Now, no doubt the presidents have each had a role in this mess, but who really has the power of the purse? The Congress, yes, that's right. They determine how it is that we spend our money. So in my view, we absolutely need to send them packing. We must term limit the Congress. Now, that is my key plank overall, but I have a number of other issues that come into play. With term limits, I also have a provision where I want to ban lobbying for a 10-year period post-congressional service, so you don't become a rich lobbyist. But again, the whole point of that is to negate or put an end to all this crazy budget deficits that are killing our younger people. So what are some of my other planks? Well, I have planks involving higher education reform, legal reform to help keep the media more honest, and then some tax reform related issues. So specifically with respect to legal reform, I want to allow public figures the ability to sue media companies for defamation. Something that precludes it right now is something called the malice rule. So basically, unless you can prove you're being malicious to the public figure, you can't sue. Now, that's a hard thing to do. It sounds easy. But by removing that, people like Trump would have been able to sue all the media companies for the Russian collusion affair and so forth. So another plank in that legal reform issue involves allowing citizens to sue district attorneys and prosecutors for these revolving door criminals that they don't deal with appropriately and that go out and actually hurt police officers and the regular citizens. So that's a couple of the main items in that particular area. Involving higher education reform, one of the contingent liabilities that we all face here right now is the federal guaranteed student loan program. Basically, probably 15 years ago, the government has taken over federal student loans, and we've accrued roughly $1.8 trillion of contingent liabilities that President Biden is continually trying to forgive. We need to put an end to that and essentially turn it over to the states or the universities itself. I also have ideas in terms of drastically reducing the cost of public education. In the tax reform area, again, I ran one of the largest tax practices in the country. I could drink a few beers tonight and I would forget more about what's in the tax code than all members of Congress collectively know. And that's not an exaggeration. So there are a number of different things that we can do to raise hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue without changing any of your tax rates or any of your deductions. It just requires some thought and committed people to getting that done. So if you kind of look at the way I'm structuring my campaign, I'm trying to focus on issues that 80% of the country want to get dealt with, but are not being addressed. They're the 20% that are, they're the 80% that are getting the 20% of attention. In contrast, right now, many of our government officials in Congress and the Senate are focusing on, they're the 20% of people that are getting 80% of the attention right now. So we need to change that. And I think one of the ways that we will change that is by term limiting the Congress. So, changing gears again. One of the best debate questions actually came up about 2 weeks ago at a church that we were at. And we were asked to state how the Old Testament leadership standards of competence, integrity, and being people-focused applied to us as congressional hopefuls. I thought it was a great question. So concerning competence, I've talked a little bit about my background and my understanding of how the economy functions and how revenue comes into the government is something that very few people can match here. As far as integrity is concerned, what a lot of people don't realize is the bedrock of the accounting industry is integrity. So dozens of times every day, I would have to sign my name under penalties of perjury that I certify this information is complete and accurate and so forth. I can't see your hand there, I'm sorry. What do you say?
You have 45 seconds.
Okay, well, I need to claim a little of that time back. So, in summary, each week I meet with people like you that are just disgusted and tired about dealing with Congress. And I say, we just don't have to deal with that anymore. You know, we don't need to deal with illegal immigrants crossing our border, and we don't need to deal with people being frustrated about buying groceries, and we certainly don't need to deal with our people that are spending 10, 20, 30 years in Congress. So let me end with one final question here with the audience. If this were the last time people like AOC, Nancy Pelosi, and all the other ineffective candidates could run, if you'd like to see that happen, say aye.
Aye.
That's why you need to elect me, to bring about congressional term limits, something over 80% of us agree on. Thank you so much.
Hello everybody, how are you guys tonight? My name is Larry Savage. I'm running the 5th District. I am probably by far the most broke dude up here. You know, this is the way it is, right? It's life. I'm a candidate that is just sick and tired of the way things are going in America. I felt like I needed to step up. I'm married to Celeste for 26 years, going on 26 years. I have 3 boys. I'm just scared to death of what we're leaving for our kids to grow up, the world that we're letting them grow up in. I was a correction officer for 27 years in Pendleton Correctional Facility. I've seen a lot of bad stuff. More bad stuff than anybody probably needs to see in their lifetime. Also was a volunteer firefighter, EMT. Seen a lot of bad things there also. But real quick, I'm gonna make this quick. I don't need 10 minutes. But I am just broken, like a lot of Americans are. I want to support our police officers, our firefighters, our doctors, our nurses, the people that go to work every single day. My day starts at 7 o'clock and I get off around 5:30. So getting to these events at 6 is tough, but I got to earn a living. I deal with people every day, single mothers, They earn $14, $15 an hour, trying to make a living in this economy and make a living in America today. And it's tough. We don't have anybody, I don't feel like we have anybody really fighting for those folks. When they can't pay their rent, my job is to go and evict them, get them out of their homes. That is so tough. It's terrible. And I don't want to live in a country where people can't make it, where it's not fair. I see it every day. And it's tough. I want somebody to fight for me. I don't feel like I have anybody fighting for me in America anymore. I don't feel like people are representing the poor and the middle class anymore. All you see is rich politicians going to Washington, D.C. and getting richer, building their brand, getting stronger. I mean, why? What are we doing in America these days? Used to, we would elect a guy that was just like you and represent you and send him to Congress. And then you had to come home, you had to answer the questions of why you did what you did in Congress, why you had to vote this way. And these guys are all shielded now. They're shielded behind their money, their wallet. It shouldn't be that way. It just shouldn't. I have so many things that we could get into. I mean, we've all heard each other's stories 4 or 5 times over. We all know exactly what everybody's going to say at these things. But I hope that I could reach just one person out there to let them know that I'm here to fight for you, to do what's right for you. What's going on in our schools today is terrible. Teaching our boys to be girls and our girls to be boys. They're stripping our country of our history, tearing down monuments, taking things out of our textbooks, and then teaching perversion to our kids in our libraries at school. Things have got to change. We got to have people that want to fight. I'm a dog in this fight, and don't take me for granted just because I don't have a big wallet, I have a big heart. And sometimes I feel like that's what we got to have in Washington, D.C. It's just somebody with a heart. Somebody cares about spending all your money, sending it all overseas. These people in Congress, they can't get along. They fight and grind. They don't have our interests in mind anymore. I have it in mind. I wake up every single day and go to work 5, 6, 7 days a week. Struggle. My dollar's taxed when I earn it, when I spend it, and when I save it. Where in the hell is that right? How is that right? It's not. This administration we got in the White House is dividing this country by race and by gender. Gender, I guess. Who knows what gender is anymore? Nah, it's complicated, right? We got to get this president out. We got to send people to Washington, D.C. that's going to fight against Joe Biden and his squad. All these people that divide us, the media. I go to work there every day. I go work with people of color. There's no divide at work until you get home and watch the news, and then it's all division and all hate. 99% of the time we go out, we work with our fellow co-workers. We don't see the hate and division that they're talking about in this world. I'm just asking you to think about sending just a regular person to Congress that will go up there and do the right thing, that will stand behind the police officers. The Black Lives Movement is terrible. They just villainize our police officers, our firefighters, our doctors, our nurses that are on the front lines. We send people to Congress, we send people to Washington, D.C. They say, yeah, we're going to Washington, D.C., we're going to fight for you. We're going to stop the fentanyl from coming across the border. Nobody's stopping anything coming across that border. Nothing. But guys like me, guys like the man that's running for sheriff over here, we fight it every day. Just the other day I was at a stoplight 2 or 3 weeks ago. Hear a man yelling for help. I just had knee surgery, a hip replacement. I survived an awful car accident about 5 years ago. I shouldn't be on my hands and knees doing CPR on anybody. But my calling in life was to help and to serve. And there I am, broken body, on my hands and knees, trying to save a man that had got fentanyl in his marijuana that he bought off the streets. He passed away. That stays with you. I'm I don't know if anybody ever here, besides some of the police officers and firefighters, but when you push on a man's chest and you hear the crack of the bones and the pop of the cartilage in his chest, it's tough. You feel it and you remember it. It's all because we're letting drugs cross our border unnecessarily. We have to have a full military response to that border, and we're not doing it. We should detain them as soon as they cross the border and send them back on a one-way ticket home. It seems like it's easy. It should be easy. This should be easy. But it's not. There's too much money involved anymore. It's too much. I'm just asking you, I grew up in the 5th District. This is my home and I love it. And I get emotional because I see it every day. I have to deal with putting people out of their homes because they can't make it. It's time to stop, and it's time for us to get back to our grassroots. It's time to get back to just being regular people and Americans that care about each other. At some point, we have got to do that. The only thing I know to do is go up there and fight. Do the right thing. Always do the right thing. Call on God when you need the answers. Call on your wife if you need consoling. I can't tell you how many times coming home from work, I've had to lay next to that lady and she's had to rub my head, shoulders to relax me and go to sleep because of anxiety. It's tough. There's a lot of us out here that are broken because of our government. It's time to take it back. And we got to take it back. It just takes a little bit of love and compassion. And we've lost that in this country. I'm here to fight for each and every one of you, rich or poor. I'm here for you. And I want to fight for you. I love my country. I love my state and love my district. More importantly, I just want to see my kids grow up in a free country. That's it. I want them to be able to make freedom, choices. I want them to be able to say, when your dad, one time he ran for Congress, he had this goofy idea he was going to run for Congress, try to change the world. It's not a goofy idea. It's not. Everybody should want to do this. Everybody should have the same opportunity to do this. It takes a lot of money to do this that I don't have. But I'm putting it all out there for you guys to make a decision on who's best for our country. There's a lot of good ones here for our country, but I feel like I'm a true fighter and I will go down swinging for each and every one of you. And I appreciate your time. Thank you. God bless you.
Well, thank you for having me out here today. I really appreciate being up in northern Hamilton County. I grew up in Cicero, and so I love being on this side of 31 as well, and I appreciate it very much just coming up here. So, my name is Max Engling, and I'm running for Congress here in the 5th Congressional District. I am a Christian, and that is the most important piece of me. I take it very seriously. The second thing that I am is a husband. So my wife's not here because she's taking care of the next thing that I am, which is a father. We've got 4 kids at home, and if for no other reason than just that I can show off a picture of the kids, you should take home one of these flyers that are in the back. I always appreciate the chance to do that. And the last thing that I am is a conservative. And I think that's the right order when you're looking at who are you as a person and who I am as a person. And what I'm going to do here is just give you a little bit about what drives me, and then I know we're not taking Q&A here, so I'm going to say a few things that are questions that I hear around the district the most, and some of the issues and how we can approach those. So faith, family, and hard work. So I mentioned that I'm a Christian. I grew up in a Christian household. We go to Harbor Shores Church over in Cicero still, and I think that's a particularly important thing for me, and we raise our family inside of that idea that this is a Christian household. When I look out of the country and I see how we were founded on our Judeo-Christian values, we're not there anymore. We need to pull our country back to those Judeo-Christian values. And we need someone that's going to go out there and fight to do that. When you look at family, also it drives me. So I mentioned I have 4 kids. When I look out at the next generation and say, where's our country going to be in the future? That's concerning to me. I want the country to be better for them. And it's not anymore that you can look out in the future and say, hey, that's a problem out there that we need to solve. Now it's a problem now and into the future that we need to solve. There are so many challenges that our country is facing right now. Honestly, we need to start solving them yesterday on most of these issues. Hard work. So I grew up as one of 8 kids. I'm the second oldest of 8 kids. And what that means is that you start working probably earlier than you should. I started working when I was 13, maybe 14. One of my first jobs, though, was detasseling corn. So if anybody has detasseled corn before, you know that the first season that you detassel corn, all right, they got you, they tricked you into doing that job, it's a horrible job. But then if you go back for a second season of detasseling corn, then that's on you. So I went back for a second season, and I think really it points to working hard specifically, and how that translates into working hard in Congress. So I worked all through school. I went downtown to IUPUI, I worked construction, I worked a number of jobs. I also worked when I went back for my second degree. I got a master's degree from the Naval War College when I was in DC, which we'll talk about. But I worked that all the time because I didn't have extra money. My parents didn't have extra money to say, we're gonna send you to school. I had to come up with that myself. So that whole time that I was in school, and then afterward when I was working for a small business, I was working, interning, and volunteering with conservative campaigns here in Indiana. And so that was Mitch Daniels, that was Mike Pence when he was running for the House, and that was also John Elrod when he ran downtown in Marion County, and he ran against Andre Carson, the current member of Congress now. And honestly, I think it was a little depressing, to be honest, because I think more people voted for Julia Carson, who was at the time deceased, why Andre was running, than actually voted for Andre Carson. But a lot of good experience on the conservative side to say, how do we actually do these things? So I told my boss when the House was flipped, the Republicans took over in 2011, I said, I need to go try and serve. I have to do this thing on the conservative side. That's where everyone's going to make a difference. So I didn't know anybody in Washington. I went out there, I knocked on doors, I got an internship for a committee that I didn't know existed at the time. It's the Committee on House Administration. But what that allowed me to do was eventually train members of Congress on how to do this particular job. So I know it very well, the blocking and tackling is how do you build your budget? How do you hire your staff? How do you open your district offices? Most importantly, how do you listen to your constituents and actually represent them well? So I did that for a number of years, and then I moved over to a leadership office where I was the director of member services. And what that meant is that you're taking all of this information that you've learned on the building block side, but now you're translating it to the strategic side and saying, how do we take all of these priorities in the House and pull them over and actually accomplish what we're talking about here on the conservative side? So I took all of that, working hard, and then came home to serve. I said, the same reason I went out is the reason that I came home was, how do I serve the people that I appreciate the most here in the 5th Congressional District? It's people that, my family, the people that I love. And so I'll talk a little bit about some of the issues that we have addressed on the campaign trail. A lot of us in the room have gotten a lot of these questions. But the number one thing that comes up, the number one question that's asked, and the number one thing we hear when we're going to doors is the rising cost of living. Right now, we are now 20% higher in the cost of living than we were 3 years ago. And that's just across the board. When you look at specific things like my barometer is a can of black beans at Aldi. So it was 58 cents not long ago. Now we're over $1. And when I was in Muncie, they had an economic state of Indiana and the country. And the folks in Muncie from Ball State, they were really smart people. They said, what we don't understand is that normally when we see consumer spending going up, we see consumer sentiment go up alongside it. Well, we don't really understand why, but now consumer sentiment is going down. It's like, well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that consumer sentiment goes up when you're buying stuff you want to buy. When you're buying TVs or a new truck or you're going on vacation. It's not when you're buying things that you have to buy. And right now it's the necessities that are going up. And so we need to, one, stop spending so much money in Washington. You have to cut spending in Washington. The second thing that we have to do is renew our American energy. 3 years ago, we were a net exporter of fuel. Now, any gains that are made on the energy side are in spite of the Biden administration and not in any way, shape, or form with their help. And then we have to reduce regulations on small and medium-sized businesses. We see it across the board. Why would you start a new business in this economic environment? I talked to a hog farming operation in Sharpsville, pretty good sized hog farming operation, but still a family owned one. And they said that when they are transporting hogs from 1.5 miles inside of their own farming operation, They have the same regulations as if they were going to take that and go from Ohio to California or from Indiana to Virginia. That's a problem. I appreciated Donald Trump when he said, if you're going to put a new regulation out there, you have to think of 2 others that you're going to pull back, that you're going to rescind. Because we need to uplift the business community, specifically small and medium-sized businesses. The second biggest thing I see around the district is what's happening at the border. So I've gone down a couple times. I've been in Texas and Arizona at the border. And very unfortunately, I think the cartels are better than we are at this right now. They line up immigrants on the other side of the river and they say, you're not going to go anywhere until we tell you from the cartel's perspective. They send them across. Border agents come off of the wall. They apprehend those folks. And then guess what's happening to everywhere else along the border? Yeah. Now it's wide open. They're sending folks across what they actually want to get across, whether that's drugs, human trafficking, all kinds of crime. So we need to, most importantly, stop the incentives that are drawing folks up. People know Central and South America and really around the world at this point, if you look at who's coming across, that if you come to the border, you're not going to be turned away. You're going to be essentially welcomed in. You're going to be given transportation into the country. You'll be given a hotel stay somewhere in the country. And in a lot of these blue states, you're going to be given a debit card that says, hey, can we help you pay for your daily needs? Taxpayer dollars. And then what they tell them is, pinky swear that you'll show up to your court date. 6 months, a year, 2 years later. We know that's not happening. So we have to stop the incentives, number one priority. The second is we do have to build a wall because you need an impediment. When folks are coming up, you have to have something that's saying you're not just going to run across the border. But that's not the only thing we have to do. We also have to fully resource our Border Patrol agents so they have what they need. And this is not the Senate bill that said, hey, we're going to give you money to process migrants faster. That's not what we need. What we need is true resources to Border Patrol to make sure that they have what they need to stop people coming across and send them back. Very important. So the next thing that I would talk about, because we hear it a lot at doors and questions from around the district, is what's happening in our schools right now. So my wife, she homeschools our kids. I would say I do too, but I'm running around doing all this, so I lean in where I can. But she's taking the priority. And I think right now we know that not everybody can or wants to homeschool their children, but it has to remain an option. And I appreciate what Indiana has done on the school voucher side. I think it's important to have the money follow the child. But I think it's also very important to make sure that no matter where you're getting that education, it's a strong education. And one of the things that I worked on when I was in DC was the Parents' Bill of Rights. Now there's not a lot that the federal government should be doing when it comes to education. But one of those things is transparency. And so if you're the parent, you should know what is being taught in the curriculum with your kids. You should be able to see the budget. You should be notified if something happens to your child. You should be notified if something else happens in the school. And then you should have the right to legally and lawfully petition your school board to make sure that those changes are made. I think that's extremely important because we see a lot of stuff that's happening in schools right now that should not be happening. Importantly, I know I have just a little bit of time. It is extremely important to send somebody to Washington that shares your conservative values. But it is also important to send somebody to Washington that can get to work now and understands how to take those conservative values and actually act on them, not just talk about them. So my name is Max Engling, and I would appreciate your vote on May 7th. Thank you.